Okay, Mr. Palmer, last video in the series on JavaScript. This is about using the DOM, okay, document object model. If you're wondering about why I'm not showing you how to do if statements and for loops and whatever it is, okay, you can just go on W3 Schools or something like that and learn that yourself, because you should understand the theory of how it works. Picking up the syntax shouldn't be difficult, okay? So the big questions for this video are why is the HTML DOM useful, and can you use the DOM to manipulate elements on the page? So you should remember from the previous video, we can use JavaScript to basically access individually identified elements on a page. So that any element that we've given an identifier to, we can then use JavaScript to basically pick it out from the page. So basically, how are we doing that? What we're using is something called a document object model. And the document object model is a model as a tree of a tree structure which represents the page, all right? And then we basically are navigating around that tree structure, picking out the different things, that the different objects of interest to us. Okay, so you can pick up properties of the different elements. You can then access methods. You can use methods that basically access elements and change the elements, or you can basically trigger. You can change events. Okay, so you start off with a document. Now the DOM depends upon the browser. Okay, it interprets it slightly different depending on what browser you're using. So you may have to start with a window, you may have to start with a document. All right. Within the document, you have a root node, which is HTML. The HTML branches onto two further nodes. Okay, they are the head and the body. The head branches into another node called the title. Your body may have several other elements within it. So in this case, I'm saying that my HTML page has got two paragraphs and an image as well. Okay, an image, an element, a paragraph may have text within it. Okay, so each of those objects, elements being represented with a tree is called a node. So JavaScript can basically change all the elements, change their attributes, it can change the CSS styles, it can remove existing elements, so you can make things disappear from the page, and you can add new HTML elements that weren't there in the actual HTML originally. Okay, and you can react to any events on the page, for example your button on click, and you can create new events, so you can add things like on click to existing elements. All right, so when you select your elements, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. All right, so we already know about document.getElementById, and you pass it the argument which element it is you want to find. All right, I've just written document.getElementById like that because we know that we can just do dot inner HTML after it, for example, and change what's inside a paragraph. All right, you can also make a collection of all of the elements of a particular type. Okay, and then you want to store of those in an array, and then you can work through them. So for example, I'm going to show you how to get all of the paragraphs on a page using this method. The first method, document.getElementById, is required by OCR. It says it in the new computer science specification. All right. The second method is not required by OCR, but actually is quite interesting, and you may find it useful when you're doing some coding. All right. So here's an example with me being a Star Trek fan. Okay, where's Chrome gone? There it is. All right. So here I have a page, and you can see I'm currently uploading to YouTube as well. All right. On my page, I've got an image down here. My image has been given an identifier called the image. All right, and I have a button which has an on-click function. All right. Again, you should remember why I've put my function here in the head. All right. So there's my function 1. I am getting my image using .getElementById, and I'm returning it and storing it in this object called image. So I can basically access now the property of image, and I can change it. So when I click on my button, it changes to Captain Picard doing his facepalm. All right. So here I am using getElementById to modify the property of a particular element. All right. Now another way of doing it. So let me pull that back over here, and you can, in case you want to look at the code and compare it to the before and after. All right. Now another way of doing it is by selecting all elements of a particular type. So I'm just going to go back over here. Now this way you can see I've got my JavaScript. Okay, I've got two paragraphs, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 over here. Paragraph 2 has an identifier, paragraph 1 doesn't. Okay, my button again is linked to func1 here in the header. Now this is doing something slightly different. You can see that function 1, alright, is picking up all of the elements by tag name, and it's looking for all elements called P. So it's going to zoom through my my DOM, okay, the document object model. It's going to find everything that has a P tag and store it in an array, which is being returned back to all paragraphs. You should remember what var does. Var creates a global variable. So if I had something else that I wanted to use all paragraphs, I would now be able to access it. So being an array, 0 representing the index of the first element, and I'm going to use .inner HTML to change the content. Why so sad? And 1 being the second element, I'm going to change actually the CSS, the style, and the color. I'm going to set a random color on the text. So you can see when I click on this button, it changes the paragraphs. So you can basically get all of the elements by a particular tag name, and then you can start to do things to those different elements. Okay, I'm not going to go into examples of what you might want to do, but you can probably think of ways you might want to use that in a game or something like that. Okay, or to create some crazy effects on a page, for example. So I'm going to switch back to my thing. You can see there, if you want to have a pause and look at the code and compare the before and after, you should be able to see how I'm using .get elements by tag name to retrieve all elements of a particular type, store them in an array, and then I can work my way through the array, changing those different things. Now, we've seen that alternative method there again, where you use .get element by ID or .get elements by tag, and you store them in some kind of object and then access them, right? And then you can change the properties and the style and the events, etc., etc. So most DOM elements have properties that you can change, right? And that's why you can access the data that's within the element, and you can also change the properties of it, and that's useful when you're working with a form. Okay, and we've just seen today two different things apart from .inner HTML. You've seen the style with the style.color, and you've seen me changing the property with the image.source. Okay, so let's look at let's have a quick recap over JavaScript functions, and hopefully it's a bit clearer this time. I did actually plan to do it in the third video, and for some reason I started waffling on in the second one about it. Okay, so just remember, if you remember what a function is, right, it's basically you are blocking out sections of your code that are performing a particular task, all right, and you can call it whenever it's needed. And if you're doing functional programming, remember that a function should be predictable. It always gives you the same return when it's called. Okay, so when you call it, you know you're going to get back a string or a boolean or whatever it is. It's going to do something predictable, totally predictable. Now, so in that diagram over there, you can see that in the light blue part representing the head of my HTML page. When you click on that button, it's going off and calling that function, whatever name we've declared it with. All right. So with JavaScript functions, remember that you can have multiple parameters. So function B has got parameters of x and y. Okay, when I call it the first time 1 and 3, we know that we're going to get an output of 3, but the second time when I call it with a 1, you know that you're going to get an output of undefined, because actually we didn't pass it a y. So when we do alert y, it's going to come up with some random undefined. No, it's not random, it's just undefined. Okay, that behavior can be useful. Okay, because you're not doing method overloading. If you've been learning Java, you might know about that. All right, or an object-oriented language. But it may cause unpredictable behavior, which you need to code to be able to handle. All right. So this is all. The next demo is all to do with reading data from a text field. Okay. So here I am. I've got a form that I've created in HTML. All right. So I've got down here in my body, I've got my form. My form has a name, so I can access it. All right, you're going to see something slightly different over here, not get element by ID, but something a little bit different, and some other HTML to do with the actual form, what it needs to do. All right, I'm not going to go into that in here. I've got a label for my field. I have my input type, it's my field, and I've got two buttons. All right, so when I click on submit one, it's going to call func1, and you can see it's going to go to document.myform.username.value. So you can see my form has a name.username, and then within that field, sorry, my form has a name, my form, right? And within that form, I have an element called username, and from that I'm going to pull out the value. So you can actually see the document tree there in action, where I've gone to document, I'm navigating to the my form node, and from my form node I'm finding the username node, okay, the child nodes as I'm going down the tree, and I'm going to alert whatever I've typed in there. So if I type in something in here, I don't know, my name, I'm feeling very boring right now, and I hit the button, you can see it outputs that message. Okay, so that's one way of picking out sorry, that's actually another way of picking out data using the DOM. All right, now func2, I want to do something with it, and I want to change some of the properties of it. So I can basically start to mess around with the style of the different elements. Okay, so I'm just going to paste a bit of code back into here that I cut out earlier, just to make it simpler to look at the first time around. This time I'm saying if field is the same as nothing, because there's no data in it, I'm going to get element by ID label username, because my label has an identifier. All right, and I'm going to change the style of it. Okay, I'm also, for example, going to in my document.myform.username, so this is a new method I've just shown you of navigating using named elements on the tree. Okay, I'm going to change the value of what's in that text box, and I'm also going to change the style of it. So if you save it and refresh it, right, if I leave it blank and hit submit to, you'll see that now it's put some default text into username into that box, and it's actually changed the style of both the label and the text box using two different methods, .getElement by ID and by using this name method where we've named the elements, not using an identifier. Okay, so there's the code, all right, along with the outputs if you want to pause it and see it all together in one go. All right, so basically you should be able to see now why the HTML DOM is actually useful, navigating up and down the tree to pull out nodes in order to change the properties as any attributes, change events. Okay, and you should be able to use the HTML DOM to manipulate elements on a page.